Welcome back to the Explanation Pro. Today I'll recap a war drama film based on the assassination of Nazi leader Reinhard Heydrich called The Man with the Iron Heart. Spoilers incoming. On May 27, 1942, SS Obergruppenführer Reinhard Heydrich, who is a well-known political figure in the Nazi Party, is being shown. He cuts his way through the streets of Prague in a Mercedes when suddenly, a man appears in the middle of the road and brings out an automatic rifle to assassinate him. Many years ago inside Germany's Kiel naval base in 1929, Reinhard, who is an officer of the German Naval Command by this time, is up against another officer in a fencing match, where he easily outplays his opponent. Later that day, he takes a woman named Christina on a date, leading to a rough intimacy in his loft. The following night, he attends a rowing club ball and goes dancing with a woman named Lena von Osten, whom he invites to a movie. They go on a train and she reveals that she is a member of the Nazi Party as head of the Reich Security Main Office. Knowing this, he continues to meet her parents where their feelings eventually grow. One day, he is summoned by Commander Schuster to identify a woman who claims to have had intimate relations with him 18 months ago and are bound for marriage. He vehemently denies this and insists that she's out to ruin his reputation as an officer. Nevertheless, he is told to appear in court to defend himself from this accusation, where he then finds out that the young woman's father is friends with Admiral Raeder in Berlin. During his court-martial, he confronts the alleged affair, supported by some evidence. He is forced to come clean but clarifies that she is a jealous woman who is trying to ruin his future marriage. Unfortunately for him, the court does not rule in his favor as his behavior is deemed inappropriate for an officer in the Navy. The outcome of the trial makes him go berserk and destroy his apartment. Lena comes by and confronts him about the affair, though she is more concerned about keeping the whole thing a secret in order for them to live as husband and wife. He then travels to a chicken farm and meets with Heinrich Himmler, who is aware of his recent naval discharge following the trial. He offers him to become head of SS counterintelligence to expose infiltration tactics of political enemies, which he greatly accepts after proving that he has knowledge in outsmarting an enemy using an analogy. Sometime later, he is now part of the SS and gets to work closely with Heinrich Müller in fighting the Communist Party. They do a raid on one of the party's secret hideouts and brutally punish everyone involved. At a dinner hosted by Himmler, he is commended by Officer Ernst Röhm for his methods of discipline and espionage all over the capital and insists that he should join the Sturmabteilung SA division. He then goes back home and enjoys the rest of the evening with his wife as they get intimate. The next day, the German people celebrate the continuous rise of the Nazi Party, with Reinhard and his family marching with others in a support rally. He is then seen making a sworn oath in front of their supreme leader, Adolf Hitler. To show even greater loyalty to the SS, he takes on a mission to eliminate Ernst Röhm and his men from the SA, as they are suspected traitors to the cause, and plans to overthrow Hitler. Months pass and his family has grown, and they celebrate by throwing a big party. Himmler speaks proudly of him to his wife and mentions that Hitler calls him the man with the iron heart. In September 1939, during the German occupation of Poland in the middle of World War II, Reinhard's duties in the Nazi Party evolves. He is now installed as chief of the Reich Security Main Office and orders the Einsatzgruppen Mobile Death Squad to exterminate the Polish people by any means necessary. Many innocent civilians are killed in the mass genocide, and the ongoing chaos is being filmed in order to be reviewed and documented solely by him. During a party for the Nazi officers in a brothel, he is seen spying on a room through a one-way mirror, where an escort is about to pleasure a high-ranking official. The following day, the man he saw yesterday was actually General Eduard Wagner of the Wehrmacht, who usually visits him. He reveals that he is aware of his predilection for young prostitutes and blackmails him for information on enemies of the regime. As the continuous killing of Jews occurs, Reinhard, now general of the command, finds one of the soldiers having difficulty with his gun and lends him his side pistol. Though he may be a busy man, he still teaches his eldest son Klaus how to play the piano at home. As his wife approaches them, he informs her they will move to Prague soon due to the nature of his work. 2 years have passed and he is now in Prague as acting Reich Protector of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. He announces to the crowd that he will make the city Jew-free, with Berlin and Vienna to follow. He requires all Jews to report to the police stations wearing their Jewish symbol. He also promises to increase Czech workers in the armament factories while Czech resistance organizations will be dismantled. Meanwhile, his wife Lena, who has slowly adjusted to their new life, expresses her concern about feeling abandoned in their marriage. He furiously snaps back at her as he was reminded that it was her influence that rose him to power in the first place. She leaves and later spends time with Klaus playing the piano, visibly upset. A beautiful woman is then seen entering Reinhard's room, as he plays the violin. Days later, he holds a meeting with his fellow Nazi officials regarding the number of Jewish people collected in the latest census. His goal is to eliminate at least 11 to 12 million more Jews, and so he proposes a solution to group them in separate concentration camps for men and women. Some of them who are still healthy will be subjected to manual labor while others will be exterminated. 6 months prior to Reinhard's assassination attempt, Czech soldier Jan Kubis trains with Private Josef Gabčík, with both men yet to play a role in the assassination. They are part of the Free Czechoslovaks, a resistance organization serving as paratroopers. A mission to infiltrate German territory is then undertaken by the two soldiers. Amidst their mission, they land somewhere in a snowy region and leave behind their parachutes stuck in a tree, only to be discovered by a team of Nazi soldiers. Meanwhile, after a brisk round of fencing, General Reinhard informs Müller about the two parachutists and requests an update on the hunt for another Czech resistance group, the Three Kings. After trekking the mountainous regions of Prague, the two soldiers reach a friendly outpost to recover from the cold. An informant then hands them work certificates to present as identification inside the German-occupied city. They arrive at the train station soon after where Josef meets with Marie Moravec and escorts him away from the checkpoint. Meanwhile, an SS confronts Jan and asks him to show his credentials. He luckily makes it towards the tram at the last minute and joins the two. She takes Josef into her home while Jan ends up in the home of Jan Zelenka, who informs him that he will be sheltered by a local family and after that, he will be able to see the Three Kings at an undisclosed time and location. The following night, he goes to a parlor during closing hours and asks to get a shampoo, to which a woman working at the parlor, Anna Novak, obliges at his request. Revealing herself as the contact Zelenka mentioned, she takes him to her home and lets him spend the night in her room. They plan to appear as a couple in order to blend in the city better, and before he sleeps, he shares a kiss with her. As a new day comes, members of the Three Kings are suddenly cornered by a Nazi squad at a derelict location. The Nazis then capture one of the men, Josef Mason, and tortures him. General Reinhard arrives to interrogate him about the location of Václav Moravec and the two parachutists. Refusing to talk, he shoots him multiple times and orders his men to find Moravec. Meanwhile, the two paratroopers happily reunite at a barnyard and meet with Moravec personally. He reveals that the rest of the Three Kings are killed off and the SS are aware of their covert operation, known as Operation Anthropoid. He shows them what appears to be a suicide pill, which both men will carry in case they get caught. He then agrees to help them with an escape plan once they get their operation going. At a local bar, they talk to a steward who knows the inner workings of the general's chateau. To acquire more information on Reinhard's security detail and movements, he is asked to pass on whatever he observes and gets Josef to meet with his contact every 5 p.m. at the tram stop at Tolska Street. Josef will then be able to tail his convoy every day based on the marked timings given and share what he knows back to the chosen contact. Knowing that Reinhard's convoy has a fixed route, he eventually finds a suitable location along a bend on the outskirts of town for them to execute the assassination. They then start to plan for lookouts to be situated in a triangular position. Some time passes and Reinhard finds Moravec's location. He tries to fight back against incoming soldiers and eventually shoots himself outside a balcony. After this, the general announces that all of the Three Kings are now dead and that the resistance is over. Disturbed by what he witnessed, Josef rushes back home and starts to have doubts about their operation. Around nightfall, resistance soldier Adolf Apalka receives a Morse-coded message all the way from London informing him that Moravec is dead and the Czechs must assist in the assassination as soon as possible. He and the others meet up with the two paratroopers to talk them out of executing their plan, as this will put all their loved ones in danger once they fail. Despite the huge risks laid out, the men insist that they can pull this off without issue by choosing another soldier, Josef Valchik, to help them carry it out. On the other hand, the other resistance members also decide to assist on the sidelines. In preparation for the attack, Jan modifies an anti-tank grenade in his home while Joseph picks up parts of a rifle and some ammunition that he assembles. Meanwhile, Valchik keeps with him a small pistol. The day of the assassination arrives and the men start to position themselves in the correct viewpoints before Reinhardt's car drives by. Everyone involved in the resistance is visibly nervous about what is to happen in the next few minutes. The clock shows that it is 15 minutes past 10 in the morning, which indicates that the car is coming as scheduled. Valchik sees it across the tracks and immediately signals Joseph with a mirror. He hurriedly makes his way onto the road in front of the Mercedes and points the gun at Reinhardt, but it jams. Panicked, he retreats hastily as he gets shot at by the general. Jan uses the opportunity to throw the bomb he made at the car and it successfully explodes. Barely surviving the incident, Reinhardt tries to chase after the two men but eventually falls due to his injuries. Later on, a German squad arrives and takes control of the situation. Joseph exchanges gunfire with SS Oberscharführer Johannes Klein, who was driving the car, and shoots him 3 times by the steps. He then makes it safely back to their house but appears disappointed that the plan did not go through exactly as predicted. Meanwhile, Jan escapes by bike to Anna's home and arrives bleeding on the forehead. Later that day, the general is brought to the infirmary as Lena frantically checks on his condition. A manhunt is undertaken by the Nazi troops and they go through each house to search for the perpetrators of the bombing. Though they search Anna's home, they didn't find Jan, as he hides by the windowsill. He leaves her and continues to hide in the Cyril and Methodius Cathedral basement, where the rest of the resistance are waiting, including Joseph. To escape the country, Zelenka constructs wooden coffins for them to be shipped out like supplies. At the hospital, Reinhard is in critical condition, barely able to speak, as Lena stays by his side. Himmler visits him and he is handed a dossier entitled, "The Final Solution to the Jewish Question." Accepting his fate, Reinhard recites a line from one of his father's operas and dies soon after. Days pass and a funeral is being carried out in honor of his legacy and commitment to the Nazi Party. Meanwhile, his plan of mass genocide takes effect and hundreds of civilians from the town of Liddis are executed as they interrogate each of them for the location of the resistance members. Eventually, everyone involved in the resistance is apprehended by the Nazis, with some committing suicide. On the other hand, the cathedral where the rest of the resistance stayed is raided at night. After a 6-hour-long exchange of gunfire from both sides, the Nazis use a big hose to flood the basement and draw out Jan and Joseph. With nowhere else to go, they eventually decide to shoot each other in the head. It is then noted that Reinhard is the highest dignitary of the Nazi regime ever assassinated by the resistance during the Second World War. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.